it's Jen and Diane here with the Cadence Court additional videos that I promised you when you signed up for the program. And Diane, you may have seen her before. She's done video for us, and she is a very experienced sewer, and you love foundation paper piecing. You love, you have a machine embroidery.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I enjoy.
Yeah, and of course, wonderful piecing. And so when we were preparing for our supplemental videos, I asked Diane, hey, do you want to show me your technique? She's the one that made the sample quilt. It's absolutely stunning. Do you want to show me your tips and techniques or just teach us? And it's been a long time since I've done foundation paper piecing. And she's like, I would love to share what you've learned, your process, your way to get organized. And we've, oh my gosh, gone to so many lengths to make this additional.
We have.
Yeah, so I'm going to let you take it away. Okay. And I'm going to be a student again. It's been a long time. I know, and every time I do foundation paper piecing, if it's been a long time, I have to rewrap my mind around it.
You know, and even as many times as I've done paper piecing, I always have to reorient myself too. And it's just kind of training your brain a little bit.
Yep.
Because it's quilting in a different way.
It is, and but I love the precision of it.
Oh, and that's what I think has drawn me to paper piecing is just the intricacy of the pattern and what you can achieve with this process. I just love it.
When we were deciding, because I remember when we were introduced to Ombre Galaxy, is what this is.
Yes.
And I think you had mentioned me about this project, and we had the black, the white version on the front and the black, and I just said, this isn't even a hard decision.
It isn't, because the black really does showcase the beautiful ombre fabrics. And so it was a no-brainer.
That was a no-brainer. And we reached out to Sassafras Lane, who has been so gracious, because normally people have to get the book and then go Xerox with things like Carol Doak's foundation paper. They have to go take that step on their own. But in your program, you're getting everything. Now, right away, would you recommend just having this on hand for practicing?
I would, because if you feel like you're rusty and haven't done this in a while, or if you're more of a beginner, practicing a square or two would be a good idea. And so I would definitely have a pack on hand.
Okay.
And you just run these through. I use an inkjet printer and just use the copy function, and it works perfectly.
Great. So if it has been a while, please practice on some scrap fabric. Even if you don't have this, maybe printing it on a piece of printer paper?
You can. It's not ideal, but you can.
Okay.
And the patterns are still in the book. And so this is what we have photocopied for you already. But if you wanted to practice using some scrap fabric, then you could certainly photocopy these pages. But as we mentioned, we have already done that step for you for the kit itself. But practicing, you would need to do that on your own.
I would definitely do a practice one. I know I would.
I did too, because that just kind of warms you up, gets you ready to go.
Okay.
So let me show you what's going to be in the kit that you would get each month. So this is a block of the month. And for the first 6 months, you're going to get the fabric that you see here. And this is enough for 4 wedges. So looking at our quilt, there's a total of 24 wedges, and a wedge starts in the center and works its way out. It'd be a single color. And so the first 6 months are going to include all the wedges, and then the last month, the 7th month, is going to be the finishing kit that's going to have all the background pieces so that you can assemble it and put it all together.
Oh, so fun.
Yes. So you will get your own copy of the book, and then each month for the 4 wedges, you're going to get 2 sets. And so of those 24 wedges, there's 12 different designs. So I want to point them out. So here is wedge 1 and 13 in this light gold and light purple. So if we look at our quilt, here is wedge number 1 in the light gold. And then directly across from it is the same diamond design in the light purple. So these two are exactly the same pattern across from each other. So you're going to do each pattern 2 times. And so that's going to be this first group. And then we're going to give you a second group that's wedges 2 through and 14. So we're just going to go counterclockwise 1. So this is wedge 2. And here is wedge 2. Excuse me, this is going to be 14. So 2 and 14. So each month then we're just going to work our way around the quilt. So I'm going to remove this second set here and show you how to prepare and get ready for your quilting. And organization is really the key to getting feeling confident and successful. Okay. And you know, that is going to be really, really important. So here's our 4 fabrics, the 2 ombre colors, and then we're going to also have the exact amount that you need of the white and the black. So we can see our white is going to be part of our paper piecing and also the black. So black is going to be the background. So we have in the kit, we're going to provide you with cutting diagrams to show you exactly how to cut the pieces that you need in the sizes that you need. Now, the information that's listed below has come directly out of the book. So we have reproduced this, but yet put it also in diagram form to help you. And then one step, and I think this is going to make it so much easier, is we are providing labels so that each time you cut a piece, you will add a label, and we'll demonstrate that momentarily, so that you know exactly which piece is going to go where. And that's going to be really important so that you can create your wedges.
And stay organized.
Exactly. And then the photocopies that we mentioned. This first set is for 2. So we have 2, and we're going to demonstrate these. And so those copies are made for you. Again, if you want to practice, then you'll need to make additional copies. Okay?
That's
all right, so that's what we have provided for you. What I'd like to show you next is the cutting and get those pieces ready to go. Now, I'm going to start with the ombre because there's a little bit of a important thing to make up. Here, let me move this aside. I'm going to give you that. I was going to move that over here.
Yeah.
All right, so we want to lay it out. And the diagram shows us that we are going to put the light color of the ombre to our left. And that's exactly what we've done. And so we are going to first cut a strip that's going to be 3 inches wide. All right, so get our ruler here. I'm going to scoot this over just a little bit. Do a little clean cut here.
Yep. Let me step out of the way.
Okay, I know you're not used to company here.
Oh, well, it's fun to have. It's fun to have a friend on set with.
Yeah. All right, so get that clean edge. And then we're going to do our 3 inches. Okay, so there's the first 3 inches. Now, we're going to make that 3 by 3.5. You want to cut that next part?
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. 3 by 3.5.
3 by 3.5.
Okay, I'm gonna repeat what you did there.
Yeah.
But I think 3.5. No, I think I actually have a simple 7/8 ruler on deck with me, but I think I can make that happen. And it doesn't have to be exact, does it?
It does not, because you're going to trim away to make it the exact size that you need later.
All right, so I'm going to go use my mat this time. 3 by 3.5.
Okay, now we want to make sure that we keep track of this piece.
Oh, that's right.
That's where we're going to add our label.
Oh, that's so cool.
This piece is A1.
Okay.
So we're going to take our label off, and there you go. A1. This piece is scrap for now.
Boy, good to keep on hand in case something goes wrong.
You never know. You never know. Now, we would just continue across, and cut just like the diagram. So the next strip that we'd cut would be this dimension. We've got 4.5, and we would cut it 4.5, and then we would cut it at 7.
Right.
And then we would add our label.
Beautiful.
Okay, it tells us this is color number 1 because it's wedge number 1.
Yep.
And it tells us the size right on the sticker, and then it tells us which piece it is.
Okay.
All right, so I mean the diagrams are very self-explanatory in that way. All right, so you do this for the gold, and then you do this again for the purple, for wedges 1 and 13. And then the black and the white are all of the fabrics that you're needing to complete both of the wedges 1 and 13.
I see. This is going to be done 2 times.
It is.
And then this is going to be done once for the black and the white, because it's for both. Okay.
Yes, and if you look very carefully at the numbers, you know, it says this is piece D6, and then here's your second D6, so that you have 1 for wedge 1, 1 for wedge 13. So everything is already doubled here for you.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay, so once we have all those cut and all those labeled, and I've gone ahead and done that for us, then we need our second step of organization, and that is to put them into the groups for our wedges. So the wedge itself has this small piece right here. That's wedge. This is part A. This one's a little bit bigger, part B, part C, and then this is actually split in half. So the bottom half is D and the upper half is E. Okay. So next thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to take all my black, all my white, all my colored, and I'm going to put them in their A, B, C's, and D's.
Oh.
So that way I know.
That's so nice.
Isn't it great?
Just to know
it's
all
and
together.
And then I want to keep it together, and that's why I like using the Wonder Clips for that.
Of course.
And I would go through, and so here's the second set of A's. So when I have my purple set cut, I would put them with the purple.
Okay.
So, and then I would do that for all of my groups. Okay. All right. So we're going to do our first paper piecing, but I want to talk about the tools that we're going to use, and I want to talk about how to set the sewing machine up.
Okay.
All right. So for our paper piecing, we mentioned the paper already, and you're doing a lot of trimming. So more now than ever, you're going to need a nice sharp blade.
Okay.
And you are cutting through paper. I know a lot of people feel like cutting paper with your rotary cutter is inappropriate, but it's just one of those necessary things.
Yeah.
You just need to do it for this process. All right, so a nice new blade. This is a very special tool just for paper piecing called an add-a-quarter ruler, and we will demonstrate this momentarily to show you how it works and why we need it. And it does come in 2 sizes. I personally prefer the longer one because it allows you to work with longer pieces. Some of our pieces are quite small, and if you're more comfortable with a shorter ruler, this is certainly an option for the smaller pieces.
Yep.
Okay, and sometimes you'll see them in different colors, and the color is just a matter of preference.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything different.
Sure.
Okay, so I usually stick with this.
Okay.
I mentioned the Wonder Clips, and that's to keep myself organized, and of course for bindings as well. We're going to be using some Scotch tape. We're going to be using some fabric glue. And I have Aurifil thread, which is a 50 weight. You want to make sure that you have a little bit finer thread when you're sewing because of the precision. Thread actually does have a width.
Yep.
And it can affect your precision. So you want to make sure that it's nice and fine.
Good.
So this is my favorite piecing thread, and it's never steered me wrong.
That's right.
That's right. And then finally, the needle for the machine. What's important to me is you're going to be piercing the fabric and the paper. And so the hole needs to be a little bit smaller. So we're using a size 70-10 needle. It's super sharp, so we use the microtext. All right, so this is kind of one of the mainstays of paper piecing as well.
Nice.
Okay, now let's look at our sewing machine. All right, so we have the needle in our sewing machine. We also have our Aurifil thread up there as well. And then we have an open toe foot so that you can see the line when you are sewing right on the line, the printed line, and we'll demonstrate that. The open toe gives you the best vision.
Yeah.
You can see what you're doing there. And then we have the walking foot there.
And this, yep, on the dual feed, but if a person doesn't have a BERNINA, would you recommend a walking foot?
You know,
or just that open toe?
If it's an option, I would certainly use it. If it's not an option, that wouldn't stop me.
Okay, gotcha.
Correct.
And I see the shortened stitch length at 1.5.
Yes. And the shortened stitch length, there's two important reasons for that. First is that when those short stitches, they are going to hold those pieces together a little more securely.
Yeah.
And then secondly, they perforate the paper so that when we remove the paper later, it's more easily removed.
Sure. I do that with the star singles.
Absolutely.
It just helps perforate it, and then when I tear it away, it's not unseating my thread.
Right.
I love it.
You don't want it to pull that
Good
out.
plan.
So anyway, those are the tools that we need. All right, so are you ready to do a little paper piecing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I'm excited.
Let's get going. All right, so we have our templates here, and we're not going to show every single piece because there's a lot of repetition. But I have chosen, Jen, for you to do, the start is this section B. Okay. Now, when you cut these out, I'm just using some paper scissors here. We are going to need some little paper scraps later, and I will explain that. So we're going to kind of leave these long pieces on the edges intact.
Sure.
Okay. And that's just because it'll be helpful to us later. No other reason than that. And when you do cut them out, we are not cutting right on the line right now. We will save that for later when all of our paper piecing is done. So this is a rough cut. So I'm just going to cut, you know, maybe 1/8 of an inch away. And it is not a precision cut by any means. Okay. So remember, there's two here, one for the gold and one for the purple. We just need one of them right now.
And it's probably good just to cut out what you need when you need that.
Yeah, you know, unless you want to cut them out and paper clip them.
Yep, all together.
Or clip them with your other pieces, that works too. Okay. All right, so that is where we're going to start. And this, we're just going to put aside for now until we need it. Okay, so we need to find our pieces. And what letter are we doing here?
Uh-oh, glasses time again.
It is.
Let's see here, color 1. So I remember that the numbers are where you're going to start. Piece 1's going to go down first. And that's the color piece. So must be our gold.
Okay, you are right on. All right, so this is piece B. All right, so we need this piece, and we need all the others that are piece B. So there's a 5 and a 4, and then that goes right to C, so we're done with those. And then we should have a 2 and a 3.
And I think we should point out that in the book, they had kind of a light and a medium.
Correct.
And we decided to go with all color, all black, and the same fabric here. So when they see light and medium, it's just the white every time?
All of them are white.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
And then if they see the word background, is that going to be black every time?
It will be black every time.
Okay.
And so that can be a point of confusion, but because of our cutting diagrams, we tried to remove that confusion, but they are using the picture on the front cover. And so when they reference background in the book, they're referencing it as white, where we are using black. So we have the pieces numbered, so you should know exactly where each piece goes.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. So with them numbered, it tells us that number 1 is the center color piece. So I'm going to remove the label now, and we're ready to go. I'm just going to stick that there for now. Now, one of the things about paper piecing is this is our pattern, but it is the pattern on the back side.
That's the part that's always confused me.
Always tripped me
every
up too.
time.
It does. So what we need to remember then is we are going to flip this paper over, and now this is the top.
Okay.
And here's our fabric. We want the right side up.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm going to flip it back so we know we have this in the right place. Now, this piece has been cut to size so that it's going to provide us full coverage for this center area, and it goes to the seam allowance as well. So what we want to do now for this very first piece is we're going to glue it in place, so that it doesn't move around. So what I usually do is I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm going to use the glue here, and you don't need a lot.
Yeah.
Just enough to keep it in place when we're going to be sewing through the paper very shortly, and so it just is just a little bit, and that's enough to keep it from going anywhere. All right.
What a fun process.
It is.
It's so satisfying how precise everything is.
That's exactly right. And you look at it and you think, wow, I'm pretty good.
That's right.
Okay. All right. So that was piece number 1. The next piece that we're going to add, and it tells us, is piece number 2. And so we look over here, and here is B2, and it is black. Okay. All right. So when I first learned paper piecing, my teacher said, remember TSP, like teaspoon abbreviation.
Oh, this is new. I've never heard this. Okay.
And it actually is very helpful. So the T means trim.
Okay.
And the S means sew.
Okay.
And the P means press.
Trim, sew, press.
Right on.
Got it.
Okay.
There's a test at the end of this. I am taking, like, trying to keep mental notes.
That's right. You'll get it, though. There's so much repetition in this process that, you know, while you feel like you're just really doing some heavy thinking, it pretty soon becomes habit.
Okay.
And then it becomes very relaxing.
You don't have to think about it?
Not every time.
Okay.
Just the first
Just don't let a day pass.
Exactly right. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to first sew our new piece, piece number 2, to piece number 1. So the T was?
Trim.
Trim. Good job. Okay. All right. So this is why I use this cardstock right here. So I'm going to create a seam right here, and I'm going to lay my cardstock right on that line. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. Now I am going to fold this back, and folding this back completely straight is very important. Okay. So you don't want there to be like any, that fold needs to be right on that line. Okay. And so I usually will run my fingernail up and down that.
Sure.
Okay. All right. I'm going to need my rotary cutter.
Okay.
No, I don't need the ruler.
Oh, you don't?
No,
okay.
because I have this ruler.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So I am going to add this, since this is actually my seam line, I'm going to now add the seam allowance when I cut this. And that's
right.
why.
That's the add a quarter.
That's why we're adding a
Hello.
quarter.
The light bulb went back on for
now,
me.
I want you to feel that. Do you feel that edge right there?
There's a ridge.
It is. Okay. And that's there so that when we put this down,
That's
the ridge
right.
side goes down. And I like to make sure it's right up against that fold. And so I generally, you'll see me do this.
Yep.
And I do it out of habit now. I don't really think about it too much, but that's just so that I know
you
that
have
it's
it
snug up against there.
That's
okay?
so cool.
All right, so I'm going to cut. All right, so after we cut, and we have our seam allowance now, and we can open that back up. All right, so I'm going to flip it over. And this is now where we're going to sew our first seam, and we're going to add this corner piece, which is the background, B2. All right, so I'm going to flip it over. This is our piece. Now, kind of a disclosure here, this black fabric doesn't seem to have a right or wrong side.
I agree with you. I was wondering about that.
And so we're
it's the same.
It looks exactly the same. I tested it a couple of different times. So you don't have to worry about it too much.
That's
this black.
nice.
And the white, you can tell.
Yes.
I mean, and so if you're like, oh, I can't tell which side is which, I can't either. So, all right, so we're going to take that label off. All right, now, when we sew this seam, we want to make sure that this whole area, including the seam allowance, is covered by our piece of fabric. So here's how I do that. because you don't always center your piece of fabric. In this case, we will, but in one of the other pieces that we make, I'll show you when that's going to be different. So I know that it's going to cover everything, and so I kind of have laid it here, and then I'm just going to flip it back. So now we have right sides together, but we're going to sew from the back side. And so I'm going to add a couple of pins. And you can see we've got our pieces aligned. So after we trim, the next step is to sew. All right, now here's what I do. I never backstitch. And so I'm going to start into the seam allowance. This starting point right here, I'm going to use these little scissors as a pointer. I want to be beyond that into the seam allowance. So I'm going to kind of estimate the angle of this line, and I'm going to go maybe about halfway into the seam allowance, and I'm sewing with my 1.5 stitch length, so they're nice and short, and I'm going to go across, and I'm going to put my needle right through that line, and that's why I like the open toe foot. Right through that line, and when I get to the end, I usually go about 3 or 4 stitches beyond this point, and I end up about halfway into the seam allowance.
Nice.
Okay, again, no back stitching, and then just trim the stitches away. So I'm going to have you do that.
Okay. I will do my best.
Sure you will.
To visualize kind of where that extension would be.
Exactly. Okay. All right, I'm just going to trim away this little thread here. And look on the back, trim that little guy away. All right, so we trimmed, we sewed, and now it's time to press. So we're going to press it open.
Oh, TSP.
There you
Trim,
go. Trim,
sew, press.
That's right. And I'm just going to hold it there. Now, with the paper piecing, you want to dry iron because the steam can curl the paper.
Oh, of course it could.
Yeah, so
turn that steam function off.
I don't use steam.
Yep.
Okay, now this looks a little strange, but it's exactly the way it's supposed to look.
Okay.
I promise. Okay, so we have now joined piece 1, B1, and B2. So I'm going to go back over to the other side, and you can see we have covered everything that we need to cover, and we're going to leave it that way for now. We do all our trimming when we're finished.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to now move to the next piece, and we'll follow in numeric order, and we're going to do piece 3. All right, so T is?
Trim.
Trim. All right, now, when we trim, there's a little something I want you to be aware of. We have to fold our paper back, and we run into some stitches in our seaming sometimes. If that's the case, I just take my fingernail and I hold it right in there and I pull the paper back a little bit.
Sure.
So ripping the paper is what you want to happen. You don't want to pull stitches out.
Okay.
So I do it really gently, but you'll find that as you get more experienced that you kind of just get a little quicker.
You know it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so again, I'm going to lay the cardstock right on the line. I'm going to fold it back, and I want to make sure that I've folded it back exactly on the line. I kind of burnish it with my fingernail, and you can see now we've got some black and some colored paper.
Yeah.
Some fabric. So again, gonna rock it back and forth. Make sure it's in there well, and we'll trim. Okay. All right, we're going to open that back up. And so now we have provided with a seam allowance for our part B2, B3. All right, so we're going to add that in.
Grab that.
You got it. Okay, I'm going to lay it on here so that I know that it's covering all the area that it needs to cover. And then I'll rock it back. Okay, I kind of just hold it there, flip it over. Use a couple pins. Oops, there's 2 there.
I like the repeatable part of
It
this.
is.
I like that.
Yeah, it is very repetitive, and that's why you get into a nice rhythm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to send you back to the sewing machine. Again, start back into the seam allowance, all the way down, and a few stitches into this side.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Trim our threads away. Again, we're just using gray thread. It's just a neutral color. I mean, we have so many colors.
Yeah.
There's no way we could match. And, you know, you think, well, we have a lot of black. But when you're next to the white, you just don't want that black to show through.
That's true.
So, all right. So now we're going to press. Again, with our dry iron. All right. Now it looks even more funny.
Yeah, it does. It looks like an arrow.
It does. All right. So flip it back over. We've done 2, 3. Now it's time for 4. Would you like to cut this one?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. I
All
want
right.
to do the trim.
All right.
And so I
you're going to
tear the paper a little bit,
so
don't
kind
I?
of pull the paper back and put your fingernail right in there, and just enough so that you're within the seam allowance. It's usually just a few stitches.
Yeah, I see that. It's just a little bit. I've seen people use this to fold the edge back, but I think I like the cardboard.
This is thicker, and
Yeah,
you
it
don't
is.
get quite as crisp of a fold.
I think I really like that.
Yeah, and plus, once you have it folded back, this can stay there, and it gives you more of a ridge
Yes.
for you to butt the ruler against.
Make sure that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll put the edge there. I'm going to slide it. Make sure I've got that. I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then, oh boy.
New color here.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So we want to check it to say, like you were saying,
Right.
is it in the right spot to have coverage?
Yeah.
And as long as we're seeing, like after this point right here,
Mm-hmm.
do I need to have a 1/4 inch after that?
Well, let's go back to the front to answer that question. So once you're beyond the edge of the paper, you are beyond the edge of your seam allowance. So
Okay.
you do not need to go outside the paper.
I see.
So that if you're there, you're fine.
We're good? Okay.
Mhm. Fold it back.
I think I did that right. I think the main thing is to flip it straight over.
Mm-hmm. Right. Just make
But
sure
I see these cuts are generous.
they are.
So it's not, oh, I pinned from
the
this
front.
side.
Yeah, because that's the side you're going to sew from.
Isn't that something? How it's like,
Yeah.
I've done this, but it feels like it was 100 years ago. Maybe longer.
So you'll notice that we are trimming scraps of fabric away, and paper piecing does have some waste involved. So you'll notice that the fabric requirements are a little bit higher because we are oversized pieces that we are trimming back.
So always starting in that gap and ending in the gap.
Right.
All right. And then I'll give that back to you.
Okay, yes. I'll go ahead and I'm going to turn it over real quick to get that.
That is
Thread trim.
that is so fun.
Yes, it is.
That's a lot of fun.
It is. And wait till you see how perfect this turns out when we're finished, because it's just instant gratification.
Yes. So if you're watching, or maybe a friend, invite them to watch and see, because a quilt like this can visually be so intimidating.
Absolutely.
But with your techniques and process, this is absolutely doable.
It is. And then especially with the cutting diagrams and the stickers that label everything that we've provided to just make it even more simpler.
I know at the time of filming today, I think we have some spots left. So if you do have a friend that you're like can convince this is doable, have them sign up right away. I don't know when you're watching this. By the time you see it, it may not be the case anymore. Okay, now I'm just sitting here going. Now I fold this back.
We do, and I want to point out there's one small change here. Now that we've made ourselves around the diamond, we actually have to pull the paper back on both sides because we've got stitching from our very first seam and our very last seam. So you're going to pull it back here and just tear the paper slightly. And right there as well.
Okay, so here, you kind of secure it with your nail.
Yeah, that's what I like to do. It just kind of holds it in place so that the stitches don't come out.
Okay, and then we'll put our paper there. So this is a good pointer. So many times when you get a notion in a package, you kind of keep this.
You know, it was just kind of accidental, but it worked out so great. Okay, I folded that back. We'll put our ruler down, kind of slide. We'll give a cut. Look at you. You are just going. Oh my gosh, it's like a flashback. It's like, I do remember how to do this. Yes. Check it and know that that's our spot. Although. So yeah, this is, again, we don't have to go past the paper. That's right. Okay. I'm like, but wait. Yeah. So we have a rectangular piece of fabric that was going over a triangular spot, so that's why it's kind of hanging out way far on that edge. So we will start from here. Boy, it does look, who came up with this? I don't know. It's amazing. It's genius. It is. It's incredible. Oh, I think I totally missed that fabric on that, though. Okay, there we go. One more time. Thanks for letting me sew. Be a part of it. Sure. To you. Isn't that something? How crazy it looks. Yes. And then as we trim it, you start to see the magic happen. You know, I should have put out a spinning mat. When you trim it, do you use a spinning mat? You know, I generally don't. When I'm paper piecing, I kind of set up like just all my tools right around me, and I have a chair that swivels. Okay. And so when I trim sew press, it's just all right here. And so I usually don't have room for a spinning mat. Okay. But it would certainly be helpful if that's what you'd like. Sure. All right. So now is when we do our precision trimming, and we're going to be trimming right on the line. Now, I'll let you decide because you're going to trim for us. If you want to use this ruler or the straight edge? Yeah, it's up to you, but we're going to just right on. Now, you'll notice these lines are very, very thin. Yes. And that's on purpose because we want this to cut to be right on that line, and so that's going to give us the most precise sizing. Once I make the cut, will you still see that line? You do want to be able to see the line. You're just going to basically cut right outside of it. I think I'll choose this just because of the grip on the back. The grip and being able to see through it a little better. Try to keep my head out of the way. And I'm going to try to make sure that black line is under the ruler so I don't cut it. Yeah. Let's see how we do. I'm nervous about cutting that line. Let me trim it a little bit closer. So now that our trimming is done, you ready for the big reveal?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Look how perfect that is.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? Okay, now I have done a few of the others ahead of time, and I'm going to show you how these will all work together.
I'll make some space for you.
So this was part B. I did part A earlier. So part A starts in the middle. And you'll notice this was our lightest piece of ombre. And it's going to get darker as it goes out.
Well, right.
Some of the pieces are a little more subtle. Some are a little more bold. But it definitely really adds a beautiful effect. And so then here is part C. And we can see here. And we've got the two whites next to each other here. We can see how that works.
Oh, they're beautiful.
And so now we need to start the more complex piece. And we're going to do one half of this. And I did the first half actually. And we're going to do the last half together.
Oh.
This piece right here. Now, it's a little more complex. It's a little step up, but I think you're ready.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I hope so. This is reality quilting.
All right. So I went ahead and already did the rough cut. So this is foundation part E. So A, B, C, D. Here's E.
Okay.
And it's going to go on top here. It's going to be like the top half of our diamond.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to start, and I've gathered the pieces. They're right here. And we're going to start with piece 1. Here it is right here. And it's a colored piece. All right. And it's going to go right in here. All right. So I'm going to remove our sticker. And remember, we're going to glue our first piece. And we need to glue it from the back side. Now, before our colored piece kind of like covered the whole paper.
Yes.
And we were very confident our paper and our fabric were in the right spot.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that we have to be a little bit more intentional this time. So here's what I do. I use a light box, and I can hold it up to the light and see it. But for our demonstration purposes, I'm going to just put this over the light box, and I want you to be able to see.
Yeah, let's scoot that over just a touch.
Sure.
That's a great option. I've always used a light box for tracing or applique layout, but this is a great option.
Right. So we can see, again, we want to make sure that we've covered the seam allowance, and that's going to include, going 1/4 inch past each edge. So I'm actually going to move it over a little bit, and we have plenty of room up top. So now I know that my fabric's in the right spot. All right, so I want to hold it right there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to flip it over. Again, back side of the paper, fabric's right side up.
Okay.
And just kind of put a little squiggle there in the middle.
Okay.
And so now piece number 1 is where it needs to be.
Got it.
All right. So now piece number 2, let's look at all of our pieces here. And it's going to be white. Right?
Oh.
Okay.
And this had said dark, so we just can't rely on
So
that.
yes, so the dark, medium, and light refer to the colors of gray that were in the original.
I see.
So there's shades of gray in here, and that's why it's the dark gray. That's what that meant.
These stickers are everything.
They are going to be extremely helpful. So pay attention.
Get lost.
Pay attention to what it says. E2, piece number 2 on section E.
Wow.
Okay.
Very important. Those stickers are more important than I realized. I thought that was just
a nice thing to have.
Yes.
But they're extremely necessary, I think. All right. So here we're going to do our seam right here. So I'm going to turn it around. And I'll use my template paper.
Oh.
And I'm going to put it again right on that seam. Just right here. Folded it back, used my thumbnail, burnished it down, give it the old rocking motion, trimmed it away. Okay, open it back up. And our piece. Now we're going to use the light box again.
Yes, I see that.
Because
we won't know, we can't see.
Yeah, we can't see. And so we need to make sure that our piece goes out to the edge. I'm going to turn it over and just remind you that we need to go out to the edge to the seam allowance. So we need to be over the edge of the paper and then 1/4 of an inch from this sew line. Okay, so that's what we're aiming for. Now that sew line on this side is way down here. And so some people think, well, I've got to have that piece like centered. Well, if I did that, I wouldn't be covering the fabric adequately. So I need to scoot it down and move it out.
Oh, this is such an important visual check.
Yes, it's extremely necessary because I need to have this piece out over to cover my seam allowance that goes out to the paper. So this is an example of where centering your fabric is not always the thing to do.
Right.
Okay.
That's what you were talking about before.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if you want to double check, which I do, I'm going to kind of put a little pin through here to see where the edge of my paper is.
Oh.
And I can see that I am more than adequately 1/4 of an inch away from my seam allowance.
So good.
So, and then I look over here and I can see that my fabric covers out to the edge. So I'm good there too. So that gives me assurance that my fabric's in the right spot.
I see.
Okay, so I've turned it over. We're going to sew from the top. There we go. It's a smaller piece of fabric and it wants to move around on me, but we're not going to let it. Okay, so my fabric moved. I need to fix that.
I see.
Yeah.
Definitely checking it before you sew.
So I just flipped it over and my pieces weren't aligned. Now I'm happy with that.
There we go.
Okay, I'm going to have you sew again out into the seam allowance and then just go past this line 3 or 4 stitches.
Okay.
All right, that's as far as you need to go. Okay, looks great.
Good.
All right. Hold it back. And you look at that and you second guess yourself. It's like, uh-oh, that doesn't look like it's covering the edge. Well, a lot of that's going to get trimmed away.
Yep.
So
that's the biggest thing I remember about my most recent foundation. I was doubting myself. Like I did something wrong.
Well, you know, you kind of, in a matter of time when you've gained experience, you start to realize what looks right. Even though it looks funny, it's right.
Okay.
All right. So now our next seam is this right here because that's number 2. Here's number 3. And so again, rip the stitches back just a little bit. And we'll do our cutting again. Okay, and so we can see there we've got our perfect seam allowance.
Yes.
Everything is fine. We've got adequate fabric. It's good. All right, so then we're going to take our next piece. I peeled the sticker off already. And I'm going to take a look here. And so we can see that, in fact, if you want, sometimes I do this. I'll just poke a little pin through the paper, and that gives me a little landmark if I need to make sure I'm 1/4 inch past that. That's just an option.
There you go.
It's just then, can you see your pin later?
Yep, there we go, right there. I do see it.
Okay, so I want to make sure, again, see it's not really centered. It's hanging off over here, but that's where we need it to be.
Feels weird.
Here's our pins right there. So I'm going to put that on there. Turn it over. Make sure we're still lined up.
Yep, now moving.
Okay, here's our seam to sew.
Okay.
And go out here.
Should I start here and
Whatever's
there?
most comfortable to you.
Okay, so if I did start here, you'd start a couple stitches prior.
Beyond the line.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start there.
Okay.
I think I'll hand crank that to
Okay.
make sure I'm in the right spot. Just any amount, maybe 1/8 of an inch, or you want like 1 or 2?
You know, I usually am just counting stitches.
Okay.
And I would say 2 or 3 stitches is,
Okay, plenty.
yeah. Pressed it open. All right. Again, I'm going to put it on the light box to make sure we're good. And I can definitely see the edge of my fabric way out here and way over here and adequate down here. So we're good. It's always good to check before you move on.
Oh yeah, because you need
If you trim it away and then you've trimmed it wrong, you might need to get a piece of scrap fabric and cut a new one, which I may have done before.
Okay.
All right, so where would we cut next or trim next?
This line, I believe, is our
You're
next
right. So we're going to add, we just added piece 3. So we're going to add now piece 4.
Oh,
yeah.
Here. I think I just moved something. Let's look at that. I think we did well.
Okay. All right, here's your piece 4.
So we know that that point right there, I need to be 1/4 of an inch beyond that. So if we did that technique right there, when I flip to this side, I need to visually be
right. Yeah, put your right sides together. There you go.
So as long as I'm extending out here and I have that,
yes, that's
we're
great.
good.
We're great.
Okay. So no need to use the light box now. That's more late, like after it's sewn.
You know, it could be any time that you feel unsure.
Okay.
Now that we've kind of established what we need to do for this particular design, you do get the feel for it.
Sure.
And you asked yourself all the right questions, and so we've kind of worked out a little system, but the next design will be different and we might have to, you know, figure something new out.
Right. I see what you're saying. Once you kind of have that established, but when it's a new shape, because each month will be a new shape.
Exactly.
That's what's really fun about this.
So we've got 12 of them.
Did I do that right?
Got it pinned on the top.
Let's see, what did I do? There we go. I think I have that right.
Yeah.
Okay. I keep thinking, is that line 4 or is this line 4? That one.
Yeah, you're adding piece 4, so it's inside.
Okay. Do I go all the way down here, don't I?
So where does your line stop? Yes, go all the way down and then 3 stitches beyond.
I'm like, where do I stop?
Yeah. There's.
Oh, got a little bird's nest in there. Oh, there we go.
We'll just get rid of that.
Okay.
Bye.
Look at that. Here come the stripes.
So, I was about to say, we can start to see the pattern
yes,
emerging.
we do.
Yeah.
We see that happening.
So we've got our center, and then we've added the two whites, and now we've added the next dark. Okay, so we're going to add our last piece of gold.
So we can just keep doing the same process?
Exactly. We are just trimming and sewing and pressing. TSP.
I'm going to do some teaspoon stuff over here.
Okay, you do that. All right, go for it.
I'll do that, and then maybe we'll trim it up, and when we come back, I know you've got tips and techniques of these sections.
Yeah, I'm just going to show you how to join them.
All right, I'm going to go do that.
Okay.
And we will be right back.
Okay, we have finished up our section E, and I'm going to lay it out now with all of our sections to show you again what they're going to look like.
So beautiful.
It really is stunning, isn't it?
Yeah, let me move this out of the way.
Yeah, and we're just going to join just one pair of them just to show how that works. But we have our whole wedge now, and you can see from our quilt, we start right here. This center piece will be part of our assembly at the end. So we are starting right here, and we've moved all the way out. Okay.
That's right.
All right. So let's just do this first seam right here, and I'll show you. We've left the paper on so far because this is going to help us get everything lined up exactly where we need it to be. So the paper's going to come off later. I know everyone's usually really anxious to just rip it off and get it out of there, but we just want to leave it on just a little bit longer.
Okay.
All right, so when we put these right sides together, we're looking for the perfect point. We want this point and this point to just align perfectly. And so I am using now my paper on the back because that's going to give me exactly what I need as far as aligning those two pieces.
And I'm sewing on the line again.
Exactly.
Every time I've done foundation paper piecing, I think if I remember, I remove the paper before this step. This is why just leave it on.
Leave it on. All right. So
why she's teaching this and I'm the student.
So the paper's on the back side, and so our right sides are going to be the fabric sides together. What I like to do is I'm going to take my pin and I'm going to go right through that point.
Perfect.
Okay, and I know I'm going to double check on the back. Sometimes it doesn't head through exactly straight, so I want to make sure I've got it straight. And I need to go a little bit further. There we go.
Okay.
And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I figure it's going to be right in there, and I'm going to poke it through, and look at that. It's right at our point.
Perfect.
So now that they are together in that spot, I'm just going to leave this pin right here. And then I'm going to pin these two together, and I'm going to pin around that original pin because I want it to keep that spot.
Smart.
Keep that spot. All right. So if I'm confident that these edges are where they need to be, and if I want, I could add more pins out here, but these small pieces, they're pretty secure.
Okay.
So I'm going to have you sew, and again, we're going to start at the outside edge, and yes, you're going to follow that line, and I can take this pin out now, and your goal is to just go right through.
Okay.
And we should be pretty darn good.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Okay.
I'll hand crank that down. Oh, I do need to be all the way off the edge. I'm not hand cranking that. No, I am not. And would you backstitch now?
Yes, I think I would.
Okay, because I'm now joining those sections. I feel I want to do that.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't sew over pins. Do you? Do you ever do that?
I'll get right up to them.
Yeah.
And if I need to make sure that I'm in an exact spot, sometimes I will put my needle right on top of it and then pull the pin out.
Yeah. Right at the last moment.
Right at the last minute. Yeah.
Boy, that's not a time to go fast, is it? You gotta
No, that doesn't really serve you well. Okay, so now for the moment of truth. We're going to open it up and look how beautiful that is.
Yay!
You did it just right.
Oh.
Now, if you wanted at this point, you could remove the paper on this one. But you definitely want to leave this one here because we're going to sew the next time.
Yes.
I do want to show you removing the paper. It's pretty simple just because we've perforated all of our lines with our sewing. But again, you can kind of pull those edges back. And I, again, like to kind of secure it with my thumbnail, and then it just gently rips off.
That's great.
Yeah. And I'm going slower than I normally would, to be very honest with you. And you might get little pieces of paper that are left behind. And it's kind of a personal preference if you want to spend that time to get those little pieces out, or they do just kind of dissolve if you are ever washing your quilt. You can leave the little pieces there.
Sure.
Yeah. And then this last one comes out. Now, we've glued this piece in place, but we didn't use a lot of glue, and that was why we didn't use a lot. So it will stick a little bit in the middle. And I kind of usually like come at it from all sides.
Sure.
And you might get a little bit of paper left behind. It didn't look like I did that much this time. But again, a little bit there is okay.
Sure.
And so I've left that one there. Now these seams are pretty bulky, and I chose to press them open.
Okay. I was thinking that would be the right choice.
Yeah, because there is a lot of pieces coming together right there.
Wow.
So you would just do that with all your pieces, and you would have your wedge. And it just turns out perfect.
For the other sections, like we know when we pieced to strip piecing, sew strips together, maybe sew 2 more units together, would you recommend sewing the next piece on, the next piece on, the next piece on, or do you kind of do the next 2 sections?
Well, because we have the paper left on here,
right.
we are totally stabilized.
We just keep adding.
The issue that you're worried about is sometimes that things bend or grow or change in shape or form, and leaving the paper on prevents that.
That's great.
So that's a personal preference question.
Yeah.
I generally tend to go in sequence.
Just go, sure.
Yeah. But if you want to do them, put these 2 together and then add them, that's fine too.
Wow.
But
beautiful.
As long as the paper's on there, it's going to keep its shape.
Okay.
All righty. So there is our wedge.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah.
And then do it a second time in the other colorway.
That's right. So we have the light purple. So here is we'll go right across. Here's the other one that would be for that first one. And then we go over and we have the second set with a new design. And that would be number 2 and number 14. So that would be the first month.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
So they'll continue on like this, will it be this way? It's going counterclockwise.
It is.
These and
I believe would be these 2.
Oh, that's just so, I love the change of color here.
Yeah. So for you Boise State fans, we've got the orange and the blue.
Boise State.
That's right, representing. So that will be the next month.
That's fantastic.
Right. So we're going to rearrange just a little bit here and give you some pointers and tips about assembling once all of the wedges are done.
Okay, we'll get all cleaned up.
So after all of our wedges are done, we're going to get to month number 7 and we'll be ready to put everything together. And we're not actually going to do any sewing right now, but just kind of give you the lay of the land, if you will.
Okay.
And just kind of show you some of the pieces and some of my recommendations about what to kind of be watching for. Again, we have provided the copies that you are going to need. They are in the book, and we have taken the images from the book, but there is a little bit of prep that we need to do to these pattern pieces to get them ready to go, and I want to show you that. All right, so for this first piece, it's the center template, and it's going to go, there's 4 of them to make the complete circle.
Oh.
And so if you remember when we were trimming our template pieces earlier, I said we might need a scrap of paper.
Yes.
This is that time. So these center pieces don't quite fit on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So we've got to make it fit.
We're going to make it grow.
We are. And so I have taken a scrap of paper and just taped it on this edge. And we've actually added this language right here that shows you, it says this shape is slightly larger than the print of our printer, so we're going to add 1/4 of an inch. And so the 1/4 of an inch is to the edge of the paper. And so what I did is, again, I added that little strip of paper and it went beyond, and then I used my ruler. And because the printing doesn't actually go all the way out to the edge of the paper, I just took a pen and made a tiny little dot. So because it's hard to see where the edge of the paper is. And I did that down here as well.
Oh, perfect.
So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to line up my 1/4 inch right on those dots.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, it works out well. And so got it right there on this dot.
Yeah.
And are we good there?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. All right. So now I can just trim the excess of that little strip of paper that I added. And now I know that it's the size that it needs to be.
Wow.
And so I'll take my paper scissors, and this is a pattern piece. We're not going to actually be sewing into this, so it's not a rough cut.
Okay.
We are going to trim right on the dark line.
Oh.
Because this is going to be a piece that we cut exactly to size. Okay, so you will cut that right on the black line. Okay, so you're going to do that. And we've provided a copy that is the normal orientation, and then we've shown one that is mirrored, because you're going to need that.
Right.
For those to go side to side, and then also they'll flip around and they'll come down to the other
you're
side.
You're going to have 2 reflected and 2 will be
2 normal. Okay. So that is what you need to do to prepare the circle pieces, is to add that little 1/4 inch strip.
Okay.
Okay. All right. The next piece that we're going to look at to do a little bit of manipulation is one piece that we have. We're going to have to actually tape 2 pieces together. Here's our piece right here.
Oh, so we've got this, what it'll look
Yeah,
like?
so I have one. I did the mirrored piece. I went ahead and taped it together so that we get the full piece. This one is much too big for one piece of paper. And so using the light board for this is very helpful because we've added registration marks. And so what that means is if you put this on the light and then you totally line up those registration marks so that they are perfectly aligned. And you can also see the line here is straight and the line there is straight.
Yep.
You see that?
I do.
Okay. And we had some tape.
Oh, let me get it for you. I must have moved it.
I think so. Okay. So this is where we're going to use our Scotch tape. And we will go ahead and add that tape. Actually, how about if I hold it and you tape it?
I like that.
Okay.
I don't think I got that very straight, but I think it's functional.
As long as it sticks together, we're good.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to have you cut this one out, and you can actually use, you know, the ruler and the rotary blade to cut those out too, if you like, instead of scissors.
Now, am I adding the 1/4 inch to this one?
Yes, I'm so glad you saw that. Okay, so this one piece only needs an added seam allowance.
That's a big point.
It
Otherwise,
really
it's not
is.
going to be the right size.
Exactly. Now, all of the other pieces have the seam allowance added, but this one was too big for, again, the printing area of our printer. And it actually was a same situation that in the textbook pattern book, it's the very same thing.
Yes.
Add a 1/4 inch. And so that's just noted here in the pattern, and we also have it there. So we want to add that seam allowance, and using the ruler and adding that 1/4 inch makes it super easy to do.
Definitely. That's that dash line. I love that on the Creative Grid. It's so easy to find it.
Right.
I think on the long side, I would grab, of course, my bigger ruler, but we can still make that work.
Absolutely.
When I have a ruler that's too short, I cut a distance, stop, and then kind of slide it up, you know.
And you keep your blade in place to kind of keep the lip in the right spot. Yeah. That's good.
And then this is just, I don't need, do I need to keep that?
Nope, that's
Okay.
trash.
All right. Let me get that done.
Okay, so we have got 2 of template A, and they are mirrors of each other.
Ah,
All right, 2 of template B. Actually, I have, yeah. And they are mirrors of each other. I guess that one goes this way. And then we
I see that now.
Yeah, and then we have the C's, and we'll show you where they go on the quilt. But I just wanted to point out that we have two A's, 2 B's, 2 C's. One is mirrored and one is not. And actually reversed is the word that they use.
I see.
Okay, so now that our pattern pieces are prepared, I want to show you the cutting diagram in the book.
Okay.
Now, in the example that's shown on the cover, it's very, very subtle, but this background is actually a combination of 3 different fabrics. We have not chosen to do that. We just have just black.
Right.
So in the background cutting in the book, they show the 3 different pieces. And we're going to have all the same fabric.
Right.
Okay, but I did think that they have 1.5 yards of fabric, and each of these strips is 18 inches, a half a yard. And I thought, well, this is a really good way to organize your cutting.
Yes.
So I still cut.
Like this?
I did.
Okay.
Because I felt like even though it's all the same fabric, it kept me organized.
Yes.
And so I did it section by section by section.
Right. If you didn't use this, you might run short of the fabric.
Absolutely. Now, I
yeah.
also want to point out, they show that these pieces are butted up next to each other. They mean it.
Oh, okay.
You cannot have any extra fabric in there for them all to fit.
Okay.
All right. It does fit. I proved it. But they do have to be right, like that's a shared line.
Yes.
When I cut for that piece and I put the next one down, it is right on that line.
Got it. Good to know.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out.
We are actually going to cut 4 of everything. 4 of A reversed, and so forth, because we're going to take the quilt, and I'm going to show this diagram here, and we are going to create it like 1 wedge at a time. It's divided up into quarters, but not in a traditional quarter.
Yes.
It's like a V shape there.
Yes.
Okay, so if you look here, you can kind of see how these template pieces, the A, B's, and C's, are going to fit with our wedges. So once we get each wedge constructed, we'll be following the instructions.
Wow.
And once we've got this wedge done, we're going to add on number 1 that we completed today, we're going to put template A piece right on the end. This piece is just like that, and that's going to go at the top of our wedge. And each one will get a piece of background attached to it, and then they got all sewn together.
I see.
Okay.
And then this gets sewn together, and this is later.
After this piece is completed, then we're going to add this center quarter circle.
And such a unique assembly.
It is different.
And you can't tell. I cannot tell the seams because of the way, I guess, it was quilted.
Yeah, yeah. There was some stitching in the ditch and then others that kind of mimicked the design. The quilting was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Terry, by the way. Thank you, Terry.
Okay. Now, if you'll just give us a second, we're going to show you how these template pieces fit onto the quilt. Okay, so we have kind of shown how these extra pieces are going to go around the wedges so that we can assemble the quilt. So we talked about having pieces A, B, and C, and then they are reversed. And I pinned them on, Jen and I pinned them on to show you how they actually will go on for each of the sections. So the quilt again is divided into 4 pieces like a triangle. And this section A, for example, is sewn on to the wedge first. And then this section B is sewn onto this wedge. And so these are put on individually to each of the wedges. Then you're going to take your wedges in this quadrant and you will be sewing them together and putting them into groups of 6. So this is the first section, and we're going to do this 4 times. So we'll have this same assembly repeated for this wedge that starts in the corner that goes to the center and back out. So this section, we'll do it again for the section on the top, and finally the section that's on the far right side. So 4 times you will do this, and you'll end up with those 4 sewn together, 6 wedges, and at that point is when you're going to add the quarter circle, because you'll have this curved edge right here, and that completes the full wedge. I'm going to go back to the diagram here because I want to show you that that's what we've done right here. So we've got our 6 wedges, and these pieces have already been attached. These are together, and then you add the quarter circle. So with our 4 pieces, then you'll sew 2 of them together, 2 of them together, and 1 long seam down the center.
Extraordinary. And there you have it.
And we have it.
That's got to be a very exciting seam to sew.
You know, it really is. It really is. And then to see that rainbow come alive, it's just perfect.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you have some awesome techniques for
Thank
foundation.
you.
Now I'm like, want to go do a project.
Yes.
I'm super excited.
I think you should.
So, you know, even if you've been foundation paper piecing for a while, or this is one of your first projects, obviously these tried and true techniques have produced this stunning quilt. And I know there's another project coming up to be showing soon, foundation paper piecing, and maybe some more downstream.
Yes, yes, we've got some plans.
I am so excited about that. So thank you,
You're welcome.
for you being the one to teach this, because it's fun to have I've learned a ton. I feel like maybe I never really knew how to do it before.
Well, you know, we all have our own styles.
Yes.
So you see the way I do it.
And it's very repeatable and very enjoyable. So we know this has been a longer video, but our goal here is education, so that when you do invest in our projects, we're teaching you tried and true techniques so that you can have beautiful results too. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you soon on another Shabby video.